When you hear the name Bradley, you think of a very generic man with a simple life. You would think of a warm man with a small and silent family living his simple life. But this Bradley here is a retired professional heavyweight boxer. To make a living and to make ends meet, he works as a mechanic at an auto shop. On just another day at his work after coming back from picking up a client's car, he is met by his boss at the entrance, who invites Bradley to come inside his office. Bradley understands what's happening and is reluctant to get inside. He slowly speaks, realizing that the thing his boss wants to tell him was what he feared the worst, being fired. So he tells the boss to tell it to his face right then and there. After his boss reveals what Bradley had already suspected, Bradley takes his belongings from the room where the lockers are and drives home, sad and depressed. When he reaches home, he can see from the home's porch his wife outside sitting in the car and having a very heart-to-heart conversation with someone on the phone. How much can a man handle? Things were just going down for Bradley. Already fearing the worst, Bradley heads over to her in the car, and the woman is shocked as she did not expect to see him so early. Bradley then notices a hickey on her neck, and his world comes tumbling down. After seeing this, he can barely contain his anger. He snatches her bag and reaches in to check her phone. The wife now looks scared and terrified, but she finally musters up enough courage and admits that she's having an affair on the side. "I've been seeing somebody, Bradley," says Lauren, which is her name. Bradley then sends her into the house and takes out all his anger on the wife's car. He first smashes the window and the proceeds to tearing the hood apart with his bare hands. Talk about boxing power. He then calms himself down and enters the house. They start having a frank and quite serious conversation. While couples talk, we find out something important that they were hiding. We find out two curious things. Firstly, the couple had a miscarriage a few years ago, which made them both drift away from each other, and they became less of a couple and more like strangers. To make things worse for them, they both had severe drinking problems. Lauren then opens up that she was sure Bradley was cheating on her because he wasn't at home in the evenings and on many nights. Bradley then assures Lauren that he is faithful to her and confesses to finding a part-time job that he kept secret from her. They both regret what they did, and Bradley suggests they start from afresh and from the beginning and try to have a baby again. Remember, friends' communication is always the key. But a sense of insecurity comes to Lauren as she does not understand how they are going to make a living, pay the bills, and support the family she barely earns, and Bradley was fired just today morning. Bradley suggests he goes back to his old job or a side gig that he used to pursue, a substitute drug delivery guy. Lauren cries out as she does not want her husband working an illegal job that could threaten his life and the future that they had always dreamt of having. But Bradley assures her that it is just a job that he would do temporarily until he finds a new one, and he promises her that he will just be a delivery guy, instead being a drug dealer. A small success. Cut to a year later, we can see Bradley has a posh home. Everything seems to be going well for our man here. This man has already acquired impressive connections due to his competency and professional behavior. We can see him walk into a dark corridor of an apartment and deliver a package to a woman. After receiving the money, he gets into a brand new car and drives to the hideout. He parks his brand new car in the middle of nowhere, and he removes the license plates from the car and covers it with camouflage. Bradley calls his boss to inform him that the deal went successfully. There were no hiccups in the operation. Are two more luxury cars parked outside Bradley's house, and the house itself now looks more like a luxury mansion, which means things are going well for him. We can see him walking into the kitchen, and we can see Lauren is cooking for Bradley. Bradley frowns at her and asks her to put down the knife. Lauren has a small bump that shows that she is pregnant. Lauren then replies with a smirk that already feels like hyper-parenting rather than just caring for his wife. He lifts the wife in his arms and carries her into the bedroom. This shows how much of a gentleman our Bradley is, but a phone call interrupts their romantic moment. Bradley's boss, Jill, calls him to get there urgently, telling him that when he comes to the spot, there's a gang waiting for them. A Mexican from the cartel who will become their new supplier. Just as he reaches the cartel, member walks into the room accompanied by two thugs. "This is Bradley, it's my top runner. His name is Elazar," and he introduces his goons, Roman and Pedro. He adds that they will accompany Bradley during the delivery. But for some reason, Bradley is not too fond of such a company. and he says that he will not take Roman with him. The Mexican dealer explains that he looks like he's on drugs, but his mind's been clean for 2 years, and tells him that he only tests and then trusts his employees. A new job. Jill tries to persuade Bradley because only such a professional and skilled runner can deal with such big shots. He is desperate for this supplier, and he says that Bradley himself has had drinking problems in the past, which gives a sense that everyone should get a second chance, just like Bradley got. To make things better for Bradley, his boss motivates him with 3 months off after the birth of his baby. He finally agrees, and the friends agree to the deal. Bradley says he will be in charge of the team and asks Eleazar to order his men to obey Bradley no matter what. Now both the bosses sealed the deal with a handshake, and it was now business. The 2 men and Bradley go on a mission that night. He notices Roman's gun and tells him to put his hands behind his back. The big guy kindly refuses him. To show who's the boss, Bradley reminds them that they should not go against him, and that if they really want to, they can swim on their own and do the pickup. Pedro reminds Roman of their arrangement. In the end, the bald man searches the Mexican and throws his weapon into the water so that he doesn't hurt anyone unintentionally. They jump on Gil's boat and go to the agreed place near the floaters. Pedro dives down and fetches the cargo from the bottom. When Bradley comes back, he senses something wrong, so he dumps the bag in the water and tells them to do the same. He says that they can pick it up later. But being the rebels they are, they couldn't stand him ordering around, and they throw a couple of punches at Bradley and go to their car, where they are surrounded by the police. A shootout takes place. Bradley starts walking away, but then his patriotic principle overcomes his fear and prevents him from walking away. He starts shooting at Pedro and helps the cops. Roman fires a series of bullets at Bradley, but he manages to escape into the water. Pedro is shot in the head by a cop. Bradley sneaks up on Roman from the other side, wounds him in the shoulder, and knocks him out with a couple of punches. After the showdown, he surrenders to the police during the interrogation. The detective says he is amazed at Bradley's courage. He has seen the footage from the police body cameras thanks to his actions. Not a single police officer has been killed, although even that will not help Bradley get away with whatever sins and crimes he had committed. The officer promises that helping the investigation process might make it a tad bit easier for Bradley. The detective pushes him into an emotional corner by using Bradley's patriotism and the birth of his daughter. But the man refuses to name his boss. He also says that he will get 4 or 5 years maximum for his courier work, and he is ready to be held accountable. Lauren gets an air of the situation and visits Bradley, and the man asks her not to come to the court hearing, so as not to disturb her unnecessarily, because it will not do her any good. He also denies her to visit him in prison and bring his daughter there. He doesn't want to meet with his daughter to happen in prison. First, any parent would never to be introduced to their kid in a prison. He promises that when he gets out, he will explain everything to her and make up for all the things that they have missed out on as a family. A few days later, trial takes place, and after serious consideration, the judge sentences Bradley to 7 years in prison, after what and all he has done for the police and the detective, after all the help and support he provided. By being honest, this is how he is treated. He is clearly astonished and sad by such corruption and injustice after helping the cops. Things go south. Depressed and angry, he steps into his new home, Franklin James Prison, which is infamously known as the Fridge. After waiting in a long and tedious line at registration, he turns in his possessions. The guard demands that Bradley remove his ring also, and the man reluctantly obeys because it is his engagement ring. He unknowingly shuts the window a little louder than he should have. The spoilt guard taunts and plays around with Bradley by asking him to go to the back of the line and go through the process all over again. After the frisking process was done, he was given a uniform and sent to his prison room. Bradley is met by the prisoner, whose job is to get Bradley on track, as he tells him the basic rules while he is taking him to his cell. One guard offers to join his boxing club, but Bradley refuses the boxing program as a coach. During the conversation, the guard learns that Bradley used to box and was a seasoned boxer. The old man takes Bradley to his cell and tells him what time dinner is. Now that he is all alone in his cell, Bradley lets out his anger in his usual way. Yes, you guessed it right, boxing. He proceeds to start fisting the walls and the mirrors. A guard comes in and starts escorting him out. While going out, Bradley is harassed by the guards at the prison, but Bradley is super calm and takes him as a joke. Unfortunately, that very night some people break into Bradley's house where Lauren was sleeping. After waking up, Lauren vomits at the door of the bedroom and grabs a gun to defend herself. However, the intruders overpowers her, and they manage to knock her out with tranquilizers. The next morning, the supervisor called Bradley. She informs him that his wife's doctor has contacted her, saying she has some health issues that are serious, and he needs to talk to the man. After learning that he is instructed to talk with his wife's doctor, a man named Dr. Phil, Bradley gets all nervous while waiting to see the doctor. The guard escorting the man to the visiting room once again urges Bradley to join the boxing club. Oof, talk about people being pests. The threat and a mission. When Bradley enters his cell, he sees a stranger and questions him about the whereabouts of the doctor. He tells Bradley that his betrayal has cost Elazar $3 million in loss, and they want him to repay every single penny, and that they debt was on him. The old man then proceeds to show Bradley a photo of Lauren being tied up. The stranger says that they have brought in a doctor from Korea who can do cruel things if it is necessary. He says that the Korean is an abortionist who could do cruel things to his unborn daughter. All hell breaks loose for Bradley. Now he is wondering how he could repay that money. But the old man has a task for Bradley. It is to kill Christopher Bridge, a fellow inmate of Red Leaf Maximum Security Prison, who is held in cell block 99. Bradley replies that he can't get into maximum security prison on a charge of delivering illegal drugs. However, the gray-haired man suggests Bradley to get creative, or else things will get messy for his unborn baby. On the way to his cell, Bradley realizes that he must do something immediately. He attacks the guard, the one who was suggesting Bradley to box. Look, I'm sorry for busting you earlier. I was just hoping to get you in the prison box. Quite an impressive boxing fight ensues, but surely enough, the guard is not too happy about it. Bradley is more experienced and wins easily. And to escalate things, he finally breaks the guard's arm. The backup finally arrives, and Bradley gladly surrenders. But he learns that for this commotion, he will only be transferred to a lower level. Upon hearing this, Bradley continues his mayhem and escalated his situation by picking a fight with the backup team. After a stun gun discharge, Bradley is finally subdued and transported to Red Leaf Maximum Security Prison. That's one mission down for Bradley, into the cell block 99. At their arrival, he is met by armed guards led by the warden. He explains to Bradley all the strict rules of the prison and orders Bradley's belongings to be thrown on the ground along with his wedding ring. He brags that his men are much tougher than the dimwits in the fridge. The warden also offers Bradley to test his guards if he wants to. After Bradley was given a deep search right outside and was made sure there was nothing on him. Then he is transferred to his cell, where Bradley almost pukes because of the clogged toilet smell. The wardens inform and offer him that if he behaves well, he will be transferred in 2 weeks, covering his face with a t-shirt. Bradley goes to sleep, but after a few minutes he is awakened for a walk in the yard. He meets another inmate who tells him that Block 99 is a place isolated from the rest of the prison with the most ruthless criminals and psychopaths. Bradley decides to wait no more. He says, "I'm Bradley, I'm psychotic." He then proceeds to move towards the Mexicans and provokes them into a fight. He makes quick work of the Mexicans. Even their staff turns out to be useless against him. Bang, bang. The fight is stopped by a rifle burst from the watchtower. The guards enter the area where the fight took place, and Bradley starts beating them fiercely, breaking the arm of one of them. He stops after the warden points a gun to his head. Finally, Bradley is taken to cell block 99 with a bag over his head, and the guards attach a powered belt with an inbuilt stun gun. Is put on Bradley. Pretty cruel if you ask me. The warden demonstrates how it works, and Bradley falls to his knees with the pain. He says that points are awarded for each offense. For the recent fighting, he was given 25 points. Each point equals 1 electric shock. They will be tasing him anytime they want, when he is eating, when he is sleeping. Even insults Bradley by telling that they would tase him even when he is pissing. They were trying to get to Bradley not just physically, but also mentally. Bradley is brought to his new cell. He calls out for Christopher Bridge through the small window in the door, only to find out that there exists no such person in the whole prison by the neighbor in the next cell. The conversation is interrupted by another electric shock. The guards take him out into the corridor and begin to abuse him with that stun gun. They say that his friends want to see him and then lead him to the end of the corridor, where he is met by Elazar and his gang in a big and well-lit cell. we can see a well-built man practicing his punches with a makeshift punching bag made up of rubber tires. It turns out that the feds found him and put him behind bars. Eleazar now blames Bradley for all his troubles, the loss of his money, and the death of his sister's husband Pedro, and for making her a widow. The guards give Eleazar the remote for the taser and ask him not to kill Bradley. The thugs start hurting Bradley by beating and tasering him. Eleazar shows a picture of Lauren and warns him if he lays a finger on him or any of his men, he will order the surgeon to do his bidding. Action begins. Afterwards, they knock Bradley out, and he is moved to his cell after regaining consciousness. Being the smart mechanic, he tears the sole of his shoe and puts it between the taser and his body, thus insulating himself from the shock. A few hours later, the guards once again take him out into the corridor, where Bradley, being the smart man he is, starts faking pain from the taser. When the opportunity came, Bradley attacks the guards and disarms them. Then he accidentally kills one of them and locks the other in the same cell where he killed the other guard. Bradley proceeds to the cozy room where Eleazar and his men are and proceeds to beat the pulp out of them. He makes an example of one of them by rubbing his bloody face against the floor, just like how a maid would sweep the floor. While Bradley is busy trashing the two other men in the room, Eleazar calls his assistant and tells him to start the surgery if he doesn't call back in 10 minutes. Bradley asks Eleazar to call his doctor off, but he doesn't obey and snap. Bradley breaks Eleazar's legs, forcing him to request the surgeon to stand down. Bradley picks up the phone and tells the surgeon to leave his wife, or else there will be consequences. Bradley threatens to put Eleazar in a room filled with psychotics who would simply tear him apart eventually. The Mexican can't stand it and begs the assistant to let the woman go and take her to Jill. Bradley drags Eleazar into the cell where the guard is locked up to stay put. The finale. On the other side of the story, Eleazar's assistant and the surgeon bring Lauren to Gil's house. A quick shootout ensues and Jill pulls out a hidden rifle and kills the assistant, while Lauren grabs the weapon from him and kills the surgeon. Jill calls Bradley and tells him it's over. His family is safe, and he puts Lauren on the phone, and she suggests he say a few words to their daughter. The man wishes her to grow up smart and healthy. Lauren says she is moved by his fatherly words. Bradley can't hold back his tears and starts crying. He says goodbye to his wife and breaks the phone. Warden asks if Bradley is done with his lunatics. Bradley then reminds the warden of the spare minute promised to him. During this, he drags and shoves Eleazar's head into the toilet and kicks it to pop his head out of his body. Later, the guards rush into the cell. The warden commands him to turn around with his hands behind his head, after which they shoot Bradley. Alas, at the end, a man with love for his nation and love for his family died protecting what he loved the most, his daughter. Bradley met his end in a rather sad way and was finally put to an end.